I have been investigating the Ripper since I joined the force. Though he does not kill anymore, he continues to contact and torment the loved ones of his victims.
At the risk of sounding too much like fanboys, we think that Dexter Resurrection has been one of the finest American crime drama mystery series in recent times. The sequel series to Dexter New Blood and Dexter has Michael C. Hall reprising his role as the titular Dexter Morgan, and a lot happens in the show, from Dexter going from being in a coma to hooking up with a serial murder club. Dexter Resurrection also tapped into the emotional bond between Dexter and his son Harrison, but for us, the most intriguing part of the show has been the repeated mention of the elusive New York Ripper, an inactive serial killer whose identity is unknown. While the mystery remains for much of the series, the season finale reveals his true identity, and in this video, we'll be exploring the truth about the New York Ripper.
I urge you to be careful, son. I'm tired of being careful.
How did Dexter Resurrection introduce the New York Ripper? The identity of the sinister serial killer may have been released in the season finale, but before that, there have been quite a few references to the notorious New York Ripper in the series. He's the one responsible for 22 murders in New York City and has been evading capture for decades. The show reveals the identity of the killer when Dexter comes across a file in the secret vault of Leon Prader, the billionaire serial killer. When Dexter kills Prader and triggers the vault alarm, he escapes but leaves behind a trove of Prader's secret serial killer files. Among all those files left behind for the NYPD detectives, there's one labeled the New York Ripper, and it carries the name of the mysterious killer, which is really the first concrete clue against the man. The revelation goes on to show that Prader, a killer himself, was obsessed with the other serial killers like the New York Ripper. Also, it's extremely surprising for Detective Claudette Wallace, who has been after the New York Ripper throughout her career, and she is deeply affected after she finally gets a suspect's name. Dexter selectively leaves the Ripper's dossier as a clue for Wallace, which suggests some kind of respect for her work and Dexter's involvement with his violent brand of justice. In the end, even though the New York Ripper's identity is revealed, he's never directly shown on screen, which has led many to believe that he might be a likely antagonist for a future season. Also, it's worth noting that the likes of Dexter and the detectives don't know this man, which adds a sense of surprise and shock as well. Dexter sets off on a new hunt, and it's a safe assumption that the elusive Ripper will be the next major challenge.
I'm Dexter Morgan,
Who's that?
the Bay Harbor Butcher.
Who is the New York Ripper in Dexter Resurrection, and what does it mean for the series? There was something very different about Dexter Resurrection from the onset. We're used to the formula, where Dexter Morgan is on the trail of a ruthless antagonist, and he takes out a few killers along the way. We've encountered some iconic villains like the Trinity Killer, but there have also been some forgettable misses. The overall story arc has remained much the same. Now, Dexter Resurrection takes a slightly different route because there's so much else going on that the focus isn't entirely on Dexter taking out his enemies. It almost felt like Prader was the main antagonist, but the climactic twist has left us with a fresh narrative that can be picked up next season, the New York Ripper. The season finale was packed with excitement, and it was all about Dexter getting revenge by assassinating Leon Prader, and we expected the New York Ripper to show up at any moment. While that didn't happen, the last minutes of the episode did reveal the identity of the New York Ripper. After Dexter killed Prader on a table in the vault, he accessed some of the files that he had kept on other serial killers, including some like Al who had gotten away. But Dexter didn't take all the files, and when the alarm set off, the cops arrived to find the true nature of Prader. The detectives, Olivia and Wallace, found a file on the floor, and we then got a close-up of the file. It was all the research work gathered by Prader and Charlie on the New York Ripper, and it included a name, Don Frampt. For now, it's safe to assume that Don Frampt is the actual New York Ripper, unless it's proven otherwise or this just turns out to be a teaser for the fans. This man is a mysterious entity because we haven't encountered him in all the episodes, and he's basically just a name that made Wallace visibly nervous. Now, a mystery figure like Don Frampt revealed as the actual New York Ripper can have a lot of implications on the series going forward. Firstly, the show has received a lot of attention and appreciation from fans and critics alike, and it's only a matter of time before it gets an official extension. Can we expect the mystery of Don Frampt to take the charge in the new storyline? Well, we know precious little about the real identity of the man, and even if it finally turns out to be Don Frampt without any twist, it will still be worth watching as Dexter takes on a new challenge. Everything that we know about the New York Ripper till now. Explore. Now that you all know that Don Frampt is the New York Ripper and the unseen antagonist in Dexter Resurrection, let's quickly explore everything we know about him and his modus operandi up until now. He's a serial killer who used to operate in New York City, and he terrorized the streets for many years before suddenly stopping killing. He then moved on to tormenting the loved ones of his victims, which was also quite a sadistic move. His killing tool ended up in Leon Prader's trophy collection, and there's a good chance that he was once a former guest whom Prader kept tabs on after he retired from killing. Detective Wallace was obsessed with the identity of the New York Ripper, and now she finally knows, courtesy of Dexter. We still know precious little about this infamous killer other than his name, which too can turn out to be a fake identity. He appears to be male, and it is something that is referred to as such by anyone who covers the case. Also, during a recorded call to one of the victims, he sounds like a Caucasian male in his mid-30s and 40s, but there could always be a voice modulator so as not to give away such crucial clues about his identity or actual voice. The thing that strikes us as the most important about the New York Ripper is his sadistic personality, because he seems to take great pleasure in killing and then tormenting the loved ones of his victims. There's no other reason behind giving them the gruesome details of the murders and reminding them of their trauma. Of course, he enjoyed the entire killing process and the victims were left disemboweled, which is a clear indication of his level of cruelty. However, even after his lust for violence and causing pain to others, New York Ripper stopped killing at some point, which remains a mystery, and his weapon apparently ends up in Leon Prader's hands. The weapon is a long rod with a sharp hook at the end and a handle at the base. A lot of the details that we get about the New York Ripper come from a newspaper clipping seen in the episode Cats and Mouse. It reveals that even though 5 years have passed since the deadly killer last murdered someone, his nightmarish presence still looms large. His presence lingers through eerie phone calls made to the loved ones of his victims, where he precisely targets their old wounds. The calls come with unsettling messages, and some of the calls are chillingly personal, referencing details of the fateful night when their loved ones were killed. But he's smart enough to never say something that can be tracked back to him. The newspaper article doesn't have a date, but it seems like the Ripper terrorized the city by killing at least 22 people before retiring from his killing spree. Detective Claudette Wallace was assigned the case, but she never figured out his identity, and she became so obsessed with the killer that it nearly cost her her job.
Does not appreciate what I'm about to show you.
Is Leon Prader somehow connected to the New York Ripper? Leon Prader has been a very interesting character in Dexter Resurrection, introduced as a billionaire and a host of the Serial Killer Club. He's obsessed with psychology, methods, and the artifacts of infamous serial killers, and he's more interested in studying and collecting these items rather than becoming a killer himself. While nothing has been laid out in clear terms, it's quite unlikely that Prader was an accomplice or partner to Don Frampt. He probably just saw him as the godfather of the serial killer lore, and this meant that his files on the Ripper were extensive, suggesting years of research and investigation. He was clearly an admirer and a fanboy, but we also can't rule out the possibility that he met Don Frampt on one occasion, or maybe even hosted him to pay his respects. How else do you explain coming into possession of Don Frampt's murder weapon? There have been some fan theories that suggest that Frampt could have given up his weapon when he retired or went underground, and maybe Prader was the one entrusted to keep it safe along with his identity. Also, there's a possibility that Charlie, Prader's loyal right hand, might have sourced it as a trophy for Prader, and this might have been retrieved from an abandoned crime scene or through their high-profile criminal connections. What were some of the earlier theories about the identity of the New York Ripper before it was revealed? One of the biggest mysteries involved in Dexter Resurrection was that of the hidden identity of the New York Ripper. Before we came to know all about Don Frampt, there were some very popular fan theories doing the rounds which debated the identity of the mysterious killer. One of the most popular early theories revolved around Leon Prader himself, because the eccentric billionaire was obsessed with serial killers and hosted murder museum dinner parties. Also, his possession of the murder weapon in his vault and his fascination with violence led many fans to suspect that he could be the actual killer or somehow involved directly. Another prominent theory was that Blessing, Dexter's neighbor, could be the Ripper, and this was because of his kind demeanor that clashed with his violent past as a child soldier. This could have been a shocking contrast, and the twist would have been in line with things that we've witnessed in Dexter's universe. Melvin Oliva was also a potential suspect even though he was Wallace's partner. He was always a shadowy figure who had both the access and the opportunity. We can't deny that there was a moment where we half expected Oliva to land a fatal blow on Wallace. We would say that the secrecy was purposely preserved in order to leave viewers guessing. The ploy worked wonders because nobody expected the twist in the form of Don Frampt to change it all.
But my urges.
What will be the next move for Detective Claudette Wallace now that she knows the identity of the New York Ripper? Imagine, your entire life's obsession and your career's obsession is finally out in the open. How easy is it for you to pursue it after spending years caught up in the mystery? Well, we expect nothing less from Detective Claudette Wallace, who has now discovered Don Frampt's name and the New York Ripper's murder weapon in Prader's vault. This is more evidence than she's had in her entire career, and it's safe to speculate she will now focus on actively pursuing Frampt, and now will be the time for a concrete investigation with a viable suspect. She will probably acquire admissible and verifiable evidence against Frampt because the contents of Prader's files will not be held as solid evidence in court. She still needs physical proof, witnesses, and forensic matching. Also, she now finds herself indirectly allied with Dexter and Detective Oliva. If the New York Ripper becomes active again, they all might come together to bring him down. The first step for her should be to track down and follow up on Prader's contacts, because a lot of clues might be hidden away in the billionaire's criminal network. There will still be a lot of legal hurdles in charging Frampt in the absence of direct evidence and witnesses, and if the story is pursued, the next season will be very interesting. Did the big reveal turn out to be a big disappointment? If you speak about the public opinion in general, most of the fans have been somewhat disappointed by the big revelation of Don Frampt as the New York Ripper. One of the main reasons behind this disappointment is the lack of on-screen presence and that he never appears physically. It actually felt like a distant and underwhelming antagonist, and the fans expect more depth from a villain in the Dexter universe. Also, the big reveal felt a bit rushed, and it lacked the satisfying build-up or payoff we would have expected. The fact that the whole saga is somewhat disconnected from the main storyline also doesn't help the cause. We may have learned the identity of the New York Ripper, but a lot of mysteries still remain to be unraveled, and we hope that the next season will answer all of that and more.
A vigilante team, like father, like son.
Marvelous verdict! A perfect show with a near-perfect setup. We may not be completely happy with the identity of the Ripper, but it takes away nothing from the well-orchestrated Dexter resurrection. The narrative offered plenty of thrills and surprises, and we're extremely pleased with how it all turned out. Michael C. Hall's performance is nothing short of a masterclass, and this season has been regarded as one of the best of the franchise. Not to mention the new characters who have been standout performers, including the talented Peter Dinklage as Leon Prader. We're optimistic that an extension to the series will be formally announced soon, and hopefully we get to see a lot more of the elusive Don Frampt. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of this mysterious character who just might show up next season, and also let us know your thoughts about Dexter Resurrection because we're dying to hear them. Otherwise, that's all we got for you this time, but thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.